Welcome to today's highly self-indulgent video where I'm going to show you a few photographs that I like that we've taken when we've been on our camping trips. There's going to be a story behind most of them. Some of them are just there because I like them. Most of them have a story. I'll show you the settings and if I did anything special for them. Let's do it. Hello, Richard here and welcome to today's video. As mentioned, I'm going to run through some photos that I've taken when we've been out in our VW California. They're not all in our own California, we hired a couple before we started, but they've all been taken when we've been out on trips in a campervan. So the first thing I did, I went back through all the catalogues that I've got in Lightroom and pulled out my selection of favourite photos that I've taken and ones that had a particular story behind it. Put them all into a collection and then I highlighted 11 of them that I thought made it a little bit interesting, that had a bit of an interesting story, and 11 seemed like a bit of an odd number, so I picked one more and we've got 12. So here are my 12 favourite photos or 12 photos that really they had kind of a story behind them and that are worth telling for me anyway, and good memories. So let's start with number 1. So this is where it all started. This is our first campervan hire that almost never happened. Suzanne was on a night shift the day before. We got it delivered. For some reason they wanted to drop it off at our house, which was fine. They delivered it the day before the hire started, so we couldn't start driving it until the following day. Suzanne was on a night shift that night and I got food poisoning that night. I was up all night throwing up. Not a nice story, but Suzanne came home from a night shift and off we went anyway. And we wanted to hire one before we bought it, and we chose a California. We're going to hire both. We're going to hire a California, we're going to hire a conversion, see which one we liked so we could decide which one we wanted to buy, if we wanted to buy one. And this was our first hire. I got food poisoning. It never nearly happened, but it did, so that's why this photo is in there. These are all in chronological order, by the way. So this is the first one in our history of campervanning. Photo number 2. This trip almost never happened too. I'm just looking down at the photo here if you're wondering why I keep looking down. Let me stand that on the table there. A day before hiring this van, this is the conversion that we wanted to hire, we got a phone call saying that it had broken down and they were trying to repair it, but there was a possibility that we would be going on a campervan trip without a campervan. They fixed it, so great. We go to pick it up. En route to picking it up, we got a blowout. Not ideal. Got that repaired. We got there, we picked the van up and made our first campsite. On our second campsite, just after this photo was taken, we were cruising along the south coast here, looking at the city, getting out, taking great photos, and it broke down. It lost all power, and the most we could do was about 10 or 15 miles an hour in it. We made it to our next site though, and that brings me on to the next couple of photos, which we can look at now. But again, that trip nearly never happened. So anyway. Let me just swipe here, photos 3 and 4. Ah yes, the better side of camping with children. There is a worse side coming up. So Max was really hands-on when we started. He wanted to help put the roof up and do the beds and the tables, and as you can see in this photo here that my wife took, it was when he wanted to really get involved in helping us set up. And these days I think it's a chore to get him to do anything. He just wants to sit on his iPad, but we encourage him to get involved, and that's what it's all about. You know, it's a family thing. So this one is going to mean a lot to me, I think, in years to come, with a 3 or 4 year old son helping me set up the table and do other bits and pieces. That's why I like this particular photo, and this one I think just encapsulates what it's all about. It's seeing the open, it's seeing the outdoors, it's being in nature, it's just being carefree and enjoying the open space and the outdoors, and Max obviously loves it, and even now when we're going camping, you get so excited, and this is 3 or 4 years ago. So this is, I think they depict simpler times. It depicts the freedom that we hope the campervan will give us, and the sights and the sounds and the views and the countryside and all things like that. But it also gave us tougher times as well. This trip, let me just show you the photo first. This was probably, I can't remember if it was an hour before or an hour after. I think it's probably an hour before, we were scraping toddler vomit off the seat of a 60 grand campervan. Now we got this campervan given to us because the other one broke down, so we could carry on with our trip. The guys sourced another one and we had to go and pick it up, blah blah blah. It's a long story, it's all in the link below, I think. Have a look at that. But suffice to say, scraping toddler vomit off the seat of a 60 grand hired campervan is not what we wanted when we were going out hiring campervans. So that's the bad side. It was all twisty roads, and we got there, we were about to set up, and up it came. But you know, kids and travelling, and that's what happens, and that is a very good reason we recommend seat covers in a campervan, because had this one have had one, we could have whipped it off, washed it, and everything would have been fine. But anyway, I ramble. That is why this photo means a lot to me. Moving on to photo number 6. This is a real snapshot that turned out really well. I think with a bit more editing I could have done something with the background, but it's just Max in awe of his surroundings. We were at Land's End. I don't think it was really windy, and the sea was crashing, and there were rocks, and you know, nothing in front of you apart from sea. And it just kind of, he stood there staring out for a few seconds, and I managed to get this photo. Obviously he's seen it all and done it all now, so it won't have that same impact on him, but yeah, it means a lot to me anyway, and that's why I particularly like this photo. So that was number 6. Number 7, at last. It's funny that we've taken 6 or 7 photos before we even got to our first picture of our own campervan. This was, I think, at a campsite called Sandy Balls. That is a real name. Unfortunately, they don't take touring now. They're just all static caravans, but it's a local one. We went there for our first camping trip in our campervan, our own campervan that we bought. Again, nothing stunning. It just is a good thing to look back on and think that was our first night in our own campervan all those years ago. So that's why that is in here as number 7. Number 8. Now this is one that I did try hard at. It was one of my few attempts at doing proper photography on a camping trip. I had a tripod and test shots and all this sort of thing. We were at Highlands End, so it was February, I think. We were on top of the cliff on the south coast of England in February. It was cold. It was nighttime. It was freezing. But I wanted to try and get a photo with the stars and things like that. I think this was like 4th or 5th attempt of a long exposure, and I was freezing, and this was the last one. I thought that would do. I gave up after that. But it's a real nice photo. You can see there's hardly anyone else there. But yeah, you know, it's one that I think I like it because it's my first attempt at doing something like this, and it turned out all right. It turned out all right for what I wanted. So that was number 8, I think. Number 9. This is it's another reason why we like the campervan. It's just great for a day out or a day trip or a short trip to the beach or something. We can take our food, our lunch. It's warm. And this again was just a snapshot of Max sitting there. He'd been going around on his balance bike. I think the black and white really gives it a little personal feel for Max, looking at the camera like that. Again, not staged. He was talking to Mummy in the campervan there. The intention was to get a picture of the back of the campervan, but when I saw him sitting there, I thought recompose and snap him looking at me. So that's why I like that one. It's just Max. It's just a great childhood memory that I can look back on years to come and enjoy. Yep, so that's number 9. Number 10. This was I think, yeah, this was at the end of our first European road trip. It was 2018. We visited France. It's our first and only date abroad, actually. Only trip abroad in a campervan. And this was our last night, and we were kind of celebrating a successful road trip. We had this really quiet campsite, basic facilities. We picked it because it was near the port that we had to get on the ferry the next day, and it was one of the few campsites that had grass down. So many campsites we went to in France were just sort of mud and sand, and it got everywhere. But this was just really peaceful. The sun was out, it was a warm evening, and it was kind of like, yeah, we did it. We finished the road trip in another country. So that's why this one is in here. It just represents the sun setting on a successful first road trip abroad, I think. Moving on, number 11. This was on the ferry on the way back, I think, from that trip. And it just says solitude to me. You know, he was probably pretty tired because I think we had an early start the day before. Barefoot, colouring, sort of nomadic type shot of a travelling boy kind of thing with no shoes on, and on his own there, just again, just it depicts simpler times, innocence, and the lighting. I love the lighting in it, and that's why this one stands out to me as well. Just again, a little snapshot with the window behind him. It's one that I like. So yeah, that's why that's in here. And I think the final one, this one was over 18 months ago. We took some trips, although we took some trips in 2020 in between lockdown. I think this one in 2019, it really sort of kicked off our desire, if you like, and our enthusiasm to see more of the UK. This was taken in Wales, which is where I was born, and it's the only campsite, or the only time we've been to Wales, I think, in the campervan. But there's so much of England, Wales and Scotland we haven't seen that we're determined to see over the next however many years. That's a mission really, to try and see as much of the UK as we can, share it with you guys, and again, handheld, the campervan, the valley, this is near Brecon Beacons, I think. Yeah, we love going abroad, we love doing USA road trips and things like that, but until such a time as we think that's going to be safe or affordable, we're going to see as much of this country as we can in the campervan. So there you go, a few of my favourite shots. Thank you for indulging me. I think all but one were handheld and snapshots, but they're ones that mean something to us and mean something to me in particular. So again, thank you for indulging me. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos. I've got one coming up on Sunday, which is a blast around the New Forest on our bikes. So we see some sights around the forest, and we see a mysterious thing in the trees that we didn't even know was there. So don't forget to join us on Sunday. But until then, thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.